This is a split call.
Mr. Speaker, that is correct. I'd like to take the opportunity to mihi to the Honourable Shane Jones and acknowledge that he gave his valedictory speech tonight and that many of my colleagues are over at the backbench pub enjoying his hospitality. Many of us enjoyed what he had to say, and in fact I want to pick up on something that Shane quoted in his speech, and it was "Hutia tirito o te harakeke, kei hea te komako e ko." What does that actually mean? So at the heart of the bellbird, at the heart of the flaxbush, the bellbird sings. And where will the bellbird be if the flaxbush ceases to be? So what the intention of that whakatauaki is all about is to ensure that we as whānau, as hapu, as communities, as society, support those that are most vulnerable. And actually the rito, which is in the heart of the harakeke, is the most vulnerable. So I make no apologies for the Labour Party being very clear about who our priorities are and would be if we were the government. And I particularly want to commend my colleague Jacinda Ardern and her Best Start policy, which is all about making sure every New Zealand child has the best possible start in life, which begins with a $60 per week payment for every child, and particularly those children who are the most vulnerable. So that's the 285,000 children who are living in poverty. They're the 170,000 children who are beneficiary children who received nothing from this government in the budget, and the Prime Minister reiterated that today. I'd like to focus on two commentators post-budget, one of whom is the Associate Professor Mike O'Brien, who is the Social Security spokesperson for Child Poverty Action Group. And his assessment of the budget was very clear. He said that only one budget item would directly, and I quote, affect poverty, and that was extending free doctors' visits and prescriptions to all children under 13. That is the only measure in National's budget that are going to directly affect children who live in poverty. But he had a caveat on that assessment, and I'm sure the National members of the House will find this interesting. And I quote, and this was within the context of Northland, and he said that there are geographical issues for poor people living in isolated rural communities, so extending free visits, and I quote, are of no use if you could not access them because of distance or an inability to afford to get there. And the only addition I would make within the context of South Auckland is that those free visits mean nothing if you actually don't have enough GPs for our children to visit. And Dr Paul Hutchinson is in the House tonight, and he will know that Counties Manukau District Health Board and the Counties Manukau area is the lowest provided region in terms of general practitioners. We are over 100 GPs short. And so within that context, you can extend free visits, but the reality, if those GPs don't exist in our communities, then again, those families don't have access to what we would consider the basics. And those basics, primary care basics, which ensure that our children particularly are strong, they're healthy, and they're ready and active and have the ability to go to school to learn. So, and I also want to pick up on a comment, and it was from this article in the Northern Advocate, and that was from a man called Hua Poraka from Dargaville, and his assessment of National's budget was pretty easy. And his assessment was that National doesn't care. National does not care about the children in Northland. National does not care about the children in South Auckland, because the National Party, if they think that this budget is going to reduce poverty, is going to actually address the issues of child poverty, then they're greatly mistaken. And the only other thing I wanted to highlight was that Gordon Campbell was very clear that this is the let them eat crumbs budget. That was his assessment. And I actually say for some kids living in poverty, it's actually let them eat air budget, because what you've given children, particularly beneficiary children, is fresh air. You've given them nothing. You're not helping them out of their circumstance. You're not providing a hand up or a way to a better life. You've actually ignored them. And that was the other assessment of Gordon Campbell, is that this government has ignored beneficiary children because guess what? National does not care. Kia ora.
Dr. Rajan Prasad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.